I guess I should start with how everything seemed perfect in my life. My name is Jake, and I had been happily married to my wife Rachel for about 5 years. We were that couple everyone envied. Both in our early 30s, we had a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, successful careers, and a pretty solid social life. Rachel worked as a marketing executive, and I owned a small tech startup. We were on the same wavelength about so many things: traveling, kids, even the dog we adopted together. But sometimes I think we overlook the little things, the signs that something might be off, and I certainly did. The first cracks in our picture-perfect life started to show a few months back. Rachel was working late more often, which I initially took at face value. I mean, she was ambitious, and the marketing world can be ruthless. But then there were little things: forgotten dates, her phone buzzing incessantly at odd hours, and when I asked her about them, she'd brush it off with a laugh, insisting it was just work. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something that didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was my gut telling me that something was off. The tipping point came on a Saturday afternoon. I was supposed to have a relaxing day at home, catching up on some much-needed rest. Rachel had said she needed to run errands, and I figured I'd use that time to do some work for my business. Instead, I decided to casually clean up around the house, a way to distract myself from the nagging doubts. I stumbled into our bedroom to grab a laundry basket when I noticed her gym bag propped against the dresser. For some reason, I felt compelled to look inside. What I found made my heart sink. There in the side pocket was a receipt from a hotel I knew didn't allow pets, which meant she had been there without our dog, and the date circled on the receipt was just last weekend. My mind raced. Who was she with? This couldn't be what I thought it was. I dug deeper, flipping through her stuff until I found her phone. It was unlocked. She must have been distracted at the gym or something. I shouldn't have snooped, but my finger hovered over the messaging app. A quick scroll through her texts confirmed my worst fears. There were dozens of messages exchanged between Rachel and a guy named Eric. I recognized the name immediately. He was a professional athlete, some rising star in the football world. The exchanges were flirty and intimate, filled with "miss you" and "can't wait to see you." My stomach dropped. My mind raced with images of my wife in the arms of another man. I felt like I was going to throw up. It was betrayal personified, and I was the fool standing there, completely blindsided. I had to confront her. I couldn't let this go without knowing the truth. The confrontation was messy. When Rachel returned home, I was pacing the living room like a caged animal. I remember the look on her face: surprised, annoyed, and then defensive when I confronted her about the hotel receipt. Her reaction shocked me. Initially, she tried to deny everything, throwing out excuses that were so thin they could be seen through without glasses. She claimed it was just business, a marketing retreat, or some nonsense. But I wasn't buying it. The truth hit me like a freight train. I accused her of infidelity, and instead of owning up, she doubled down, insisting I was being paranoid. She claimed Eric was just a friend and that I was overreacting. It was infuriating. There I was, faced with irrefutable evidence, and she had the audacity to lie to my face. The emotional impact of that moment crashed over me like a wave. I felt anger, betrayal, and heart-wrenching sadness all at once. I couldn't process it. Part of me wanted to scream, to shake her, and demand she confess. But another part of me, a part I didn't recognize, just felt lost and hollowed out. I went from feeling like the proud husband to a heartbroken fool in an instant. That night was restless. I barely slept, tossing and turning, replaying every moment of our life together. The laughter, the late-night talks, the planning. The thought that it was all a lie was almost unbearable. I felt like I had lost not just my wife but my best friend, the woman I thought I knew so well. As the days passed, I found myself at a crossroads. I could either wallow in self-pity or decide to take control of my life again. But how? What was I supposed to do now that I had discovered the truth? Was there a path forward, or had Rachel burned that bridge? Little did I know, this was just the beginning of my journey, a journey that would ultimately lead me to redefine not only my life but also my very identity. It was time for me to step up and take charge. But how? I had no idea yet, but I was determined to find out. The days following that confrontation felt like an eternity. I went through the motions of life, but my mind was constantly on Rachel and Eric. I couldn't shake the images of them together, laughing, whispering sweet nothings. The anger bubbled beneath the surface, and I found myself oscillating between despair and fury. I felt trapped in my own skin, a ghost haunting the life I once knew. Rachel tried to act as if nothing had changed. She would come home from work and ask about my day, trying to engage in conversations as if we were still that happy couple. But how could she be so oblivious? Did she really think I could just forget everything I had discovered? Each time she touched me, I flinched. Internally, the memories of her betrayal clawing at my heart. After a particularly exhausting day at work, I found myself at the local coffee shop, trying to distract myself with thoughts of potential business ideas. That's when I met an old friend, Matt. We hadn't seen each other in a few years, but he recognized me immediately. We exchanged pleasantries, and after a few minutes, I found myself spilling my guts about the situation with Rachel. I didn't want to, but it all just poured out. Matt listened intently as I explained everything: the late nights, the hotel receipt, the incriminating texts. His expression shifted from concern to understanding. "You know, Jake, you're not the first guy to go through this. Hell, I've been there too. It sucks, man, but you've got to take control of your life now. Don't let her dictate how you feel or what you do next." Those words stuck with me. Take control. That night I sat on our couch, staring at the coffee table cluttered with memories, pictures of our vacations, little trinkets from our life together. It felt suffocating. I made a decision. I was going to channel my pain into something productive. I had always been passionate about fitness and had built a decent following on social media sharing workout tips and healthy recipes. Maybe it was time to take it to the next level. The following weeks were a whirlwind. I started hitting the gym more frequently, pushing myself physically. I wanted to look good, feel good, and most importantly, reclaim my identity. I began posting more on my social media accounts, documenting my workouts and progress. I focused on clean eating and sharing what I learned along the way. Slowly, my followers started to grow, and I felt a sense of empowerment that I hadn't felt in a long time. But while I was busy working on myself, Rachel seemed oblivious to the changes. She would come home after work, and I'd hear her talk about her day, her clients, and even Eric, casually dropping his name into conversations. It was infuriating. Each mention was like a dagger to my heart. But instead of confronting her again, I remained silent. I was plotting my next move. I knew I would have to confront her again, but this time I wanted to be prepared. I began to gather evidence, not just for her infidelity, but also for my own peace of mind. I went through our joint bank statements, tracking where her money was going. I kept a close watch on her schedule, noting the days she was working late. Each revelation only fueled my resolve. Eventually, my hard work began to pay off. My fitness posts resonated with people who were going through similar struggles, and I started gaining a loyal following. I launched an online fitness program, filled with workout plans, nutrition guides, and motivation tips. People began signing up, and I was genuinely excited about where this new path was taking me. I felt like I was rising from the ashes of my old life, and it was exhilarating. But here's the kicker. As I was finding my footing, Rachel's behavior became even more erratic. One night, she came home late smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off, claiming it was just a new client who had overdone it. I felt a fire ignite within me. I was done playing games. The following week, I decided to host a small gathering at our house to celebrate my new fitness venture. I invited friends and family, intentionally keeping it light and fun. But I also invited Matt and a few other friends who knew about my situation. I wanted Rachel to see the life I was building without her, to realize what she was losing. The night of the gathering arrived, and the house was filled with laughter and good vibes. Rachel dressed to impress, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She tried to engage with everyone, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. As the evening progressed, I caught her texting under the table, her expression tense. When I finally snapped a picture of her phone screen, my heart raced. It was a message from Eric asking if she was free to meet up the following week. I felt a mixture of anger and clarity wash over me. I wasn't going to let this slide anymore. As the night wound down and guests started to leave, I pulled Rachel aside. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. She looked at me, confusion etched on her face. "No more lies, Rachel, no more games, I know everything." Her reaction was immediate. Shock turned to anger as she slammed her drink down. But I wasn't going to back down. I needed to confront her with the truth, and this time I would not let her twist the narrative. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. I was ready for the storm that was about to unfold. The confrontation was electric, charged with an intensity that felt almost palpable. I could see the wheels turning in Rachel's head, the denial flashing across her face like a neon sign. "What are you talking about, Jake?" she demanded, crossing her arms defensively. "You're being ridiculous." I held my ground, my heart pounding in my chest. "I know about Eric. I've seen the messages, the receipts. I'm not going to let you lie to me anymore." I watched as her expression shifted from disbelief to anger, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the betrayal and how I'd been living in a fog of hurt. This was her doing, not mine. "Jake, you're being paranoid." She shot back, her voice rising. "Those texts mean nothing. They're part of work, you know that, work." I scoffed, unable to contain my disbelief. "You think I'm going to buy that? You've been lying to me for months. I deserve better than this." The emotion in my voice caught me off guard, but I had to let it out. I couldn't keep bottling it up anymore. Rachel's eyes narrowed, and that bitchy facade she wore so well fell away. "You don't know what you're talking about. This is why I didn't want to tell you anything. You never listen." Her words felt like daggers. She was trying to twist the situation to make me the villain, and it infuriated me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm listening now, Rachel. You think I haven't been. I've been nothing but supportive while you've been off screwing around with another guy. You have to own up to this. We can't move forward unless you do." For a moment her anger seemed to simmer, and I thought maybe I was getting through to her. But then she rolled her eyes, dismissive. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Jake. You're acting like a jealous child. It's embarrassing." My jaw clenched at her words. It was like she didn't even care that she was tearing apart our marriage. "Embarrassing? You think I care about appearances right now? I care about honesty, about respect. And you've disrespected me over and over again." Rachel huffed, her arms dropping to her sides as she seemed to search for the right words. "You just don't understand how the industry works. Eric is a big deal, and I had to make connections. I did what I had to do for my career." The justification dripped from her lips like poison, and I felt the bile rise in my throat. "Your career? By sleeping with him? Is that what you think it takes to succeed?" I couldn't hold back my disgust. "This isn't just about your career, Rachel. You've put everything we built at risk for a fling with a guy who doesn't even know your last name." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off, the anger bubbling over. "You need to understand something. This is not a game, and I'm not going to let you manipulate me anymore. I'm done being your fool." Rachel's expression shifted. Again, this time to one of defiance. "And what are you going to do about it, Jake? You think you can just throw around accusations and expect me to bow down? I will not be bullied into admitting something I didn't do." She stood tall, her voice steady. I let out a bitter laugh. "What are you talking about? You're the one who's been lying and hiding things from me. You think being defensive will make this go away. If anything, it's just proving my point." As I spoke, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on my chest. I had never imagined we'd end up here, exchanging accusations like we were enemies. We were supposed to be partners, and yet it felt like she was a stranger. The silence hung in the air for a moment, thick and suffocating. Rachel finally spoke, lowering her voice. "You're going to lose everything if you keep this up. I'm not the only one with connections. I could ruin you, Jake." Her threat sent a chill down my spine. I met her gaze, my heart racing. "You won't ruin me, Rachel. I'm building something great for myself. I'm done letting you dictate my worth. This is my life, and I won't let you tear me down." Rachel scoffed, her expression unreadable. "Great. Is that what you call this pathetic fitness venture of yours? You think it will give you the power to take me down? You're only embarrassing yourself." Her words stung, but I realized then that I wasn't trying to take her down. I was trying to rise above her. I was reclaiming my life, and no amount of her ridicule would stop me. Call it what you want, but at least I'm doing something with my life. I shot back, my voice steady. You, on the other hand, are just trying to cling to a fantasy where you can have it all, both your husband and your little secret on the side. As I spoke, I could see the realization flicker across her face. She had been so caught up in her own web of lies that she hadn't considered the consequences. But I wasn't going to let it end there. I had made my decision, and now it was time to lay it all out on the line. I'm done, Rachel. I'm done with the lies and the deceit. We need to figure this out now. I want a divorce. I can't do this anymore. The words felt liberating as they left my mouth. Her eyes widened, a mix of surprise and fury washing over her. You're serious. You want a divorce over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a betrayal, I said firmly. I deserve better than this, and so do you. Maybe it's time we both face that reality. Rachel opened her mouth to argue, but I could see that she was at a loss for words. The facade had cracked, and the truth hung heavily between us. I knew I was walking away from a life I had thought I would never leave, but at that moment I also felt a surge of hope. I was taking control of my life, finally free from the chains of betrayal that had bound me for so long. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. It was time to build a new life, one that didn't include the echoes of Rachel's lies. I was determined to rise, and I wouldn't look back. Days that followed our confrontation were surreal. It felt like I was watching my life unfold through a foggy lens. I had finally confronted Rachel, and now the reality of my decision settled in. The prospect of divorce was daunting, but I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was free from the burden of her deception, ready to reclaim my identity. However, the aftermath was far from straightforward. Rachel tried to play the role of the victim, painting herself as the wronged party in front of our friends and family. It was almost comical how she twisted the narrative, claiming I was the one who had let our marriage fall apart. I could see it in their eyes, the uncertainty, the pity. It hurt knowing that some of them might be swayed by her lies, but I knew the truth, and that was enough for me. I focused on my fitness venture, pouring my energy into building something I could be proud of. I was surprised by how quickly things began to grow. My online program began gaining traction, and soon I was getting inquiries about personal training sessions. I started hosting group workouts at local parks, and the response was fantastic. People were eager to join in, and I felt a sense of community forming around me. But as I began to thrive, Rachel's attempts to manipulate the situation escalated. She would call me frequently, crying and claiming she was heartbroken, trying to convince me to reconsider. "We can work through this, Jake. I still love you," she would plead, her voice dripping with desperation. Each time I would hang up feeling like I had been punched in the gut. It was hard to reconcile the woman I had loved with the one who had betrayed me so ruthlessly. I was constantly torn between compassion and the burning anger that still simmered beneath the surface. I reminded myself that this was part of her manipulation, a way to pull on my heartstrings and regain some control over the situation. Friends started to pick sides, and it hurt to see some of them rallying around Rachel, as if they hadn't witnessed the same betrayal I had. One night I sat down with Matt over drinks, trying to vent my frustrations. "I just don't get how she can act like this," I said, exasperated. "It's like she's living in a fantasy world." Matt nodded, his expression serious. "She's probably doing it out of fear. You took away her safety net, Jake. She doesn't know how to cope with the consequences of her actions. You're doing the right thing by standing your ground." "Thanks," I replied, grateful for his support. "I just wish it didn't hurt so much. It feels like I'm losing a piece of myself in this mess." "I get it, but you're not losing yourself. You're finding a new version of you. This is the time to focus on what makes you happy and fulfilled. Keep pushing forward," he encouraged. With his words in mind, I threw myself into my fitness journey even harder. I hired a professional photographer to capture my progress and promote my brand. I wanted to show people that change was possible, that they could rise above their circumstances, just like I was trying to do. As the weeks slipped by, I found myself in a much stronger position, both physically and emotionally. I moved into a new apartment. a clean slate that felt like an invigorating fresh start. The space was small but cozy, filled with light and a sense of possibility. I decorated it with a few essentials, some gym equipment, motivational posters, and photos of my friends and family, reminders of what truly mattered. Rachel continued to haunt my thoughts, though. She would text me from time to time, asking about my progress or trying to engage me in conversations about old memories. One day, out of the blue, she sent me a long message, detailing how much she missed our life together and how she regretted everything. "I can't believe I let you go so easily. I want to change. Please just give me another chance. We can go to counseling, whatever it takes." Reading her words made my stomach turn. I could hear the desperation in her message, and it was almost tempting to respond. Almost. But I had worked too hard to break free from her manipulation. I reminded myself of the truth. I deserved more than her empty promises. Instead of dwelling on her words, I decided to focus on the future. I began planning a community fitness event, aiming to raise awareness about the importance of mental health in fitness. I wanted to create a space where people could feel supported and empowered, just as I had learned to do for myself. The day of the event finally arrived, and I was buzzing with excitement. I had rallied a group of local trainers to help out, and the turnout was incredible. People of all ages showed up, eager to participate and connect. I led a group workout, and the energy in the park was electric. Laughter, sweat, and encouragement filled the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. While I was leading the workout, I looked out at the faces of those participating, people who had come together to support one another. I realized that I was no longer just a husband or a man who had been wronged. I was a community leader, someone who was making a difference. As the day came to a close, I received countless messages of gratitude from participants, and I felt a sense of fulfillment that I hadn't experienced in years. This was my purpose, and it was a stark contrast to the toxic environment Rachel had created. Later that evening, while I was winding down, I received a call from Rachel. My heart raced as I answered, and I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Jake, can we talk? I need to see you. It's important." Part of me was curious, but the other part was wary. "What's it about, Rachel?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. I think I finally understand what I did wrong. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to make things right. Can we meet?" I hesitated, the memories of our last confrontation flooding back. "Rachel, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm trying to move on." "I know, but I think you deserve to hear me out. Please, just one last chance to explain," she pleaded. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Part of me wanted closure, but another part wanted to protect the progress I had made. After a moment, I made my decision. "Fine, we can meet. But understand this, I'm not looking to reconcile. I'm not interested in going back to what we had." "Understood. I just want to talk," she replied, her voice softening. As I hung up, I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. I didn't know what she'd say, but I was determined to stand my ground. This meeting would be the final chapter in our story, one way or another. I was ready to face Rachel one last time, but this time it would be on my terms. I had come too far to let her drag me back into her web of deceit. It was time for me to take control once and for all. The day of the meeting arrived, and I couldn't shake the tension that had settled in my stomach. I chose a small cafe not too far from my apartment, a neutral ground where I could feel somewhat at ease. It was quaint, with rustic decor and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. I arrived early, hoping to gather my thoughts before Rachel arrived. As I sat at a corner table, I reflected on the journey I had taken since discovering her affair. The pain had been unbearable, but I had emerged from it stronger and more self-aware. I had built a new life for myself, one filled with purpose and clarity. Now, I was about to confront the woman who had shattered my trust, and I was ready. When Rachel walked in, I barely recognized her. She had put a lot of effort into her appearance, her hair styled perfectly and her makeup carefully applied. She wore a simple but elegant dress, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of nostalgia for the woman I had once loved. But then I reminded myself of the truth. This was the same woman who had betrayed me, and I had to keep my guard up. "Jake." she said softly as she approached the table. There was a vulnerability in her voice that I hadn't heard before, and I steeled myself against the emotions that threatened to surface. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, gesturing for her to sit down. "Let's get right to it, Rachel. I don't have all day." She took a deep breath, her gaze on the table. "I know I have a lot to answer for, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I wanted to tell you that I've been doing a lot of thinking since everything happened." I crossed my arms, leaning back in my chair. "Thinking about what?" "Exactly, the affair, the lies, the fact that you shattered my trust." Rachel looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, all of it. I realize now how selfish I was, and I want to take responsibility for my action. I can't change the past, but I want to explain why things went the way they did." "Go on," I said, my voice steady. "But understand that I don't owe you anything. I need to hear the truth, not more excuses." Her shoulders slumped as she nodded. "You're right. There's no excuse for what I did. I was so caught up in my career and the pressure to succeed that I lost sight of what was really important. I thought I could handle everything, work, our marriage, my friendships, but I couldn't." I listened intently, my heart pounding in my chest. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to hear her side of the story. But I reminded myself that her explanations didn't excuse her actions. I thought being with Eric would help me grow my career, and at first it was exciting. She continued, her voice trembling. "But then I realized it was nothing but a distraction. I didn't want to admit to myself that I was unhappy. I took you for granted, Jake, and I'm so sorry for that." "I appreciate you acknowledging that," I said, my tone measured. "But you need to understand something. Words are meaningless without action. You can say you're sorry, but it doesn't change the fact that you broke my trust. It doesn't change the fact that you chose to betray me." Rachel's eyes filled with tears and she nodded. "I know. And I take full responsibility. I've been seeing a therapist since everything blew up, and I'm trying to understand why I made those choices. I realize now how much I hurt you and how I put my own desires above our relationship." I watched her, taking in her sincerity. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that she had truly changed, but I reminded myself of the pain she had inflicted. "Change is hard work, Rachel. I hope you follow through, but I can't be a part of your journey anymore. I need to focus on myself. Please, just give me a chance to prove it to you," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I can be better. I want to be better for myself and for you if you'll allow it." I shifted in my seat, feeling a mix of emotions. The woman sitting across from me was not the Rachel I had known. This was a woman transformed by her mistakes, and while I could see the pain in her eyes, I also saw the desperation. "You can't expect me to just jump back into this relationship after everything that happened. I'm rebuilding my life, Rachel. I'm finding my passion again, and it doesn't include the chaos you brought into my world." She reached across the table, her hand hovering just above mine. "I understand that, but please, just consider it. Can we start over, maybe as friends? I want you to see that I'm serious about changing." The offer hung in the air, tempting yet fraught with complications. Could I really be friends with her after everything? I knew it wouldn't be easy, and I wanted to protect myself from any further hurt. "I don't think that's possible right now. I need time to heal and figure out what I want. Wouldn't be fair to either of us." Her face fell, and for a moment I saw the woman I had once loved, vulnerable, scared, and lost. But the memories of her betrayal were still fresh, and I knew I couldn't let my guard down. "I wish you the best, Rachel. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I need to focus on myself and what makes me happy right now. I'm moving forward, even if it means leaving you behind." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded, the weight of my words settling in. "I understand, Jake. I just hope you find it in your heart to forgive me someday. I don't know if I can, but I appreciate you wanting to make amends." It felt strange to say those words, but I knew it was the right thing to do. As we parted ways that day, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The fear of losing Rachel had kept me shackled for too long, but now I was free. I had faced her and laid bare the truth of our relationship, and I was ready to embrace the future. Walking out of the cafe, I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in months. I had confronted my past, and now it was time to focus on building my future. I was determined to make my fitness venture thrive and to surround myself with people who uplifted me. I felt a newfound sense of clarity. This was my opportunity to rise above, and I wouldn't let anyone take that away from me. I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life, whatever it might hold. After my meeting with Rachel, the weight on my shoulders began to lift. I felt a strange mix of relief and empowerment, knowing I had finally taken control over my life. I had been shackled by her betrayal, but that chapter was closing, and I was ready to embrace the future. The weeks that followed were filled with growth and transformation. My fitness program continued to flourish, and as my clientele expanded, I found myself surrounded by a community of supportive and motivated individuals. I began collaborating with local businesses, organizing workshops, and even getting involved in charity events focused on mental health and wellness. It was exhilarating to see how much I could positively impact others while also healing myself. I also started to prioritize my mental health. Therapy had always been a taboo topic for me, but I found a great therapist who helped me unpack the emotional trauma of the last year. We worked through not just the pain of betrayal, but also my own self-worth. I was learning to love myself again, to understand that I was deserving of happiness and respect. One evening, as I wrapped up a particularly successful fitness class, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the park, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had turned my pain into purpose, and it was more fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. But the past wasn't entirely behind me. Rachel would reach out occasionally, texts filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I learned to ignore most of them, refusing to let her back into my life. The few times I did reply, I kept it brief and to the point. I wish you well, but I need to focus on myself. Each exchange felt like a small victory. I was asserting my boundaries and my self-respect. Then came the day I received a message from Rachel that shook me. She reached out to say she had been thinking about our time together and had made significant changes in her life. She mentioned that she had attended therapy consistently and was actively working on herself. I understand now what I lost, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me one day, she wrote. For a moment I felt a pang of sympathy for her struggle. Change was difficult, and perhaps she was finally on a path to finding herself. But I also realized that it didn't change the past. I no longer held the anger I once felt. It had transformed into a quiet acceptance. I took my time crafting a response, wanting to be honest yet firm. I'm glad to hear you're focusing on yourself, Rachel. I truly wish you the best, but I can't go back to what we had. I've moved on, and I hope you can too. Sending that message felt liberating. It was a reminder that I had the power to choose my path, and that path was leading me forward, not backward. As summer turned into fall, I continued to thrive in my career while building stronger relationships with friends and family. Matt became a close confidant, and we spent more time together, going to events and supporting one another's goals. I also made new friends through my fitness program, and they became a beautiful support system that I hadn't realized I needed. I found joy in little things, morning runs, cooking healthy meals, and connecting with clients who inspired me with their own journeys. Watching them succeed fueled my passion. I was genuinely happy for the first time in a long while. Then, one chilly evening, I received an unexpected text from one of my clients, Sophie. She wanted to discuss her fitness goals over coffee. I agreed, thinking it would be a routine chat. But as we talked, I felt an undeniable connection. Sophie was vibrant, passionate, and had a sense of humor that drew me in. We spent hours bonding over shared interests, and I found myself laughing and enjoying her company in a way I hadn't thought possible since my relationship with Rachel ended. As we parted ways that night, I felt a spark of something new, maybe even the beginnings of a budding romance. Over the next few weeks, Sophie and I continued to meet and grow closer. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't expected. She was supportive of my journey, and I admired her dedication to her own health and wellness. One evening, after a particularly fun workout session, I took a leap of faith. Sophie, I really enjoy spending time with you. Would you like to go out for dinner this weekend? The question hung in the air, and I felt my heart race. Her face lit up with a smile. "I'd love to, Jake." As we sat across from each other at dinner, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. With each laugh and shared story, I realized that I was finally moving forward. I was letting go of the past, ready to embrace new beginnings. Looking back, I understood that the betrayal had taught me invaluable lessons about self-worth, resilience, and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared. I had taken control of my life, transformed my pain into purpose, and rediscovered the joy of living. Life was unpredictable, but I was ready for whatever came next. I had built a new foundation, one that was stronger than I ever thought possible. My journey of healing was ongoing, but now I welcomed it with open arms. It was time to fully step into the future, a future I was creating for myself, one filled with hope, strength, and the possibility of love.